It is now up to the Spokane County Prosecutor to decide if the shooting of the Spokane Valley pastor was justified.
We have two crews working on this story for you. Annie Bishop in Spokane Valley talking to the Creach family about this report.
First, KXLY4's Tori Brunetti has spent the last 2 hours combing through hundreds of pages. She is live in our newsroom to tell us what the investigation reveals about that night. Tori.
Well, this is the report. As you can imagine, it is extremely detailed. Everything from the basic timeline of that night to the weather report to Herzl's state of mind is outlined in these pages. Deputy Brian Herzl told investigators when he saw Scott Creach walking towards his patrol car with a gun, he saw him as a threat that only got greater when he got out of the car, struck Creach with his baton, and then, according to Herzl, saw Creach reach for his gun again. He is quoted as saying, "When I saw his hand go behind his back and come out with a gun, or the grip of the gun that I saw, there wasn't a doubt in my mind that he was going to shoot me." Investigators asked if he was angry or afraid, and he told them he was afraid, saying, "Fear, not angry. I was just fearful." One thing that might have led to Herzl's state of mind was procedural training he was in earlier this year. The training involved 3 procedures. One was called shooting from the vehicle. This is the scenario. Officer is sitting in his vehicle while an actor ambushes him. Then the officer pulls out his gun while seated in his patrol car, gets out of the car, engages the threat, and then calls for help. That is almost exactly what played out the night Herzl shot Creach. Also on Herzl's mind that night, the ambush of 4 Lakewood police officers last November. Herzl specifically talked about that attack as to why he took what he thought was a deadly threat so seriously. Now, the prosecutor's office was unavailable for comment, but now it's really up to them to go through the report and determine what, if any, charges will be filed. And right now, Robin and Dave, we just really know how long it'll take.
Well, there's so much to go through. I can only
to
imagine. Now, but this isn't the only investigation into this incident.
No, there's a couple others. First, the sheriff's office will look into this report and determine if there was any procedural errors that were made, and that investigation can start today. They had to wait till this was done. And then there's another ongoing investigation, completely separate, that will look into Herzl's involvement into his ownership of an online sex toy store and whether that violated any department procedures.
Of course, we're keeping you updated.
Absolutely.
Tori, thanks.
And the Creach family has been waiting for this report as well. KXLY4's Annie Bishop live in the Valley. And Annie, how is the family reacting to this new information?
Well, Alan Creach, Scott Creach's son, received the report this afternoon. So far, he's read 100 or so pages, and he says from looking at those pages, he still believes there are more questions than answers. The 640-page report about what happened the night 74-year-old Scott Creach was shot and killed by a Spokane County Sheriff's deputy is daunting, but necessary for his family to read.
The toughest part was reading how Dad was still alive. And when Mom went out there, she was turned away. Alan
Creach picked up the report this afternoon.
One thing that stands out in particular, we didn't really think that any of the neighbors were aware or knew anything. One couple who lives close by heard that shot, exited their house immediately, looked out in the parking lot, could see Dad laying there in the beam of a spotlight.
In the report, Deputy Brian Herzl told investigators he didn't know how the light was turned on. Creach says the report is raising more questions than answers.
It's disturbing to me, and I think there needs to be some questions that are raised. I don't know that there's conclusions there. We just haven't read that far.
Creach now plans to read the entire report as soon as possible.
I think as we begin to look through this thing, and like I said, I'm only at page 100, and I'm sure there's other people in this area who are reading it just as fast as they can. But I think there's going to clearly be discrepancies that arise, and then the question's going to remain is what is the prosecuting attorney going to do with those discrepancies?
And Creach also wants to apologize to the deputies who responded to this parking lot the night his father was killed. He says from looking at the report, it's clear that he offended some of those deputies with his behavior. He says that was never his intention, and he wants to once again apologize for his behavior that night. Reporting live, Annie Bishop, KXLY4 HD News.